And then another time at Harvard, attending this lecture, I finally heard something that I was kind of wanting to hear for a long time, when the speaker said, we don't have to get sick just because we get old. And that seems to be like a simple statement, but my God, that was a humongous statement to be coming from conventional medicine. So now more and more of the literature is explaining how diabetes, Alzheimer's, and anything that ends with an itis is by definition on fire, which is an inflammation. How these old things are based on this inflammatory process that goes from, I tell patients, goes from a fireplace to a fire in the house. So in order to live, you have to burn. When you're dead, you're cold. So we have this flame of life that we use, we burn energy that creates the heat that, the human body sends out, the general heat that is created by the business of being alive. But of course, if that goes out of the fireplace and start burning the house, that's a completely different story. And we have realized that gets bigger and bigger and bigger as the years go by. Hence the term inflammaging, which is now defined as the chronic low-grade inflammation that characterizes aging. And so as they look into this, they begin to realize that the immune system had a lot to do with that. And mainly so, and I'm sorry I have to go through some physiology here, but the macrophages were kind of the linchpin of the whole story. What are macrophages? Macrophages are, macro means big, phage means eater. So these are these big eater, these big sharks that when foreign things get into the body, like broken pieces of cells, foreign substances, microbes, cancer cells, they basically get around them, they engulf them, and they try to destroy them. Now, when something like that happens, the two main parts of the immune system, the so-called innate and also the one adaptive, they get into play. And so innate means it's ready made to go. As soon as the thing happens, the body starts to react. And then adaptive means that these cells get on the phone and they start calling other types of cells that then bring out flamethrowers or different kind of ordnance or machine guns and then start killing. The interesting thing is that now we are proving, as usual, we didn't know that even the macrophages can behave differently in different situations. In some situations, they can be pro-inflammatory, and in some situations, they call them M1s, and they are be anti-inflammatory, and they call M2. So now, if you look at the whole body, as you get older, you start seeing that several tissues and organs get inflamed, and most of all, our good friend, the gut. And we have had all kinds of discussions already on the gut microbiota, and maybe for them to be the source of the deeper or deepest inflammatory reaction in the body, because there's 10 to 1 more bacteria in the body than there are cells in the body. And when you understand that 10 to 1 of these bacteria are all inflamed, it's basically like you set fire to the basement of your house, or if you set fire to the root of the tree. So if you look at the literature now, what are the major sources of this inflammatory stimuli? Certainly the diet. If you have an inflammatory diet as opposed to an anti-inflammatory diet, you're going to fuel the fire. But also there are all kinds of things, endogenous, like misplaced pieces of cells, altered molecules, damaged tissues, damaged cell debris, damaged parts of the anatomy that come in even from trauma or from poisoning or from toxins. So this is kind of what happens in life, because as you get older, there are processes like called autophagy and mitophagy. And these are kind of, if you look at them like like cleanup crews in maintenance of buildings, or factories. You end up with pieces of tools or pieces of materials that are being worked on. They have to be cleared out. As we get older, we become less and less able to process these bits out of the system, and the system starts to get cluttered. And we begin less and less able to clear the place, and the more the place the less the place gets cleared, the dirtier it becomes and the more inflamed it becomes. So much so that now in the literature, they have described this condition called CLIP, which stands for chronic low-grade inflammatory phenotype. And it's been described as this low-grade systemic unresolved smoldering chronic inflammatory state, which is indicated by 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 increase in serum level of inflammatory mediators. Like, everybody knows about the C-reactive protein, the SAD rate, interleukin-6, and all in all. The older we become, the higher they get. So now, if you look at the geriatric literature, they say that this CLIP phenotype, meaning the condition of a particular person at a particular time, are directly related to the diseases of aging. You're looking at Alzheimer's, and all this, and these are the terrible condition called frailty, where people basically kind of implode. The muscles go away, the bones go away, they become frail, and eventually they fall apart. So what's the good news into all this is because by recognizing this myriad of overlapping factors and consequences, we also are looking at opportunities to improve things. And this is where you start working on diet, you start working on hormones, you start working on behavior, meditation, exercise, and all that. Even pharmacology, metformin, for instance, this diabetic medication is becoming very popular now for anti-aging